Hi, schmucks.
You could put that in there. No. My brothers would love you. Hello again. We are here with part 4 of the series of his story converting into the Amish. In part 3, we covered his life in the Amish, but now in part 4, we are going to explain more of what happened after that up until now. The whole reason why we actually started these series is because people wanted to know his story of why he converted Amish. So there was so much background that needed to be said in order to really understand why he did that. And that's why we went into so much detail in the other videos. And thank you for everyone who supported us. So we will jump right in with his life as a taxi driver.
And like always, we got a little bit of backlash, especially with these series, because we were really diving in deep into some sensitive topics. And to be honest, we mean no disrespect to the Amish. We are not here to bash them. We're not here to bash my mother. We're not here to do any of that. That is not the point of these videos. And if people think that's the point and think that's what we're trying to do, you got it all wrong. This is just my personal testimony with my personal experience that I'm spilling out of my own heart to share with you guys. So yes, as my wonderful wife stated, I became a taxi driver in Geauga County. So just a little recap, I went down to Holmes County for a little over a year and drove for a guy. And after that, I moved back to Geauga County to continue driving the Amish up there. Business was doing well, very well actually. Considering I used to be Amish, they were inviting me with open arms to come back and drive for them, which was shocking. But then I realized a lot of people did grow up and got married, and a lot of people that got married moved away. And it was a whole new layer of Amish, people that never knew anything about me. But yeah, business was going so well that after a year and a half coming back, that I bought myself 2 brand new passenger vans. One was a 15 passenger and the other one was a 12 passenger. But what would I use 2 brand new vans for? That's kind of selfish, right? No. My dad was having a little bit of issues with his job, and after talking to him a little bit, I convinced him to come up to Geauga County to drive with me. And so one of those vehicles was for my dad, to help kickstart his driving career with the Amish. And so we did. Both of us were pretty busy with out-of-state trips, going to Florida multiple times, going to South Carolina, going to Maine, you name it. We were living the dream, having fun, just driving, and getting paid for it. But because of all this extra money coming in, paired with my bad background of financial constraint, it turned me into a materialistic loving monster, if you will. For instance, when the money started coming in, I never had this kind of money. So what did I do? I spent it on stuff that didn't mean anything. And I got so deep into this. For instance, I thought people would respect me more if I dressed nicer. I thought I could finally get people's attention in the positive way if I had the nicest vehicle. And I did get lots of attention. At one moment, I had 4 brand new vehicle payments in cars. And I had a used, low-mileage Mercedes-Benz SL500 with Lamborghini doors and a custom SLR McLaren body kit. I felt like I was living life like everyone should. So especially driving that thing around with the 5.0 engine, it turned heads everywhere I went. And people were giving me the attention I so ever longed to achieve. And I thought maybe, just maybe this time in my life, I could be someone. Or feel like I'm being someone. So I put on the smoke screen. I always bought the most expensive things, never complained about it, ate really nice, owned really nice things, drove really nice things. But people didn't realize that I was literally working really hard to just afford that, to put on a show for everybody. Later obtained myself a girlfriend which loved to go on this ride with me, this financial roller coaster of nice things. I was with her for about 3 years. But towards the end of my luxury lifestyle, Amish began spreading rumors. Other taxi drivers, which were competition, were spreading rumors. Rumors that were completely not even true. And it was so hard to dig my way out, try to grasp something to cling on to let people know I'm innocent and I don't know what you guys are talking about. Well, in the Amish community, people talk.
A lot.
Yeah, they don't talk slow, like, it's not like your neighbor's gonna find out tomorrow. Your neighbor's gonna find out in an hour. And not only that, the whole community's gonna find out before that month's up. And that's just how it works. It was hard because some people chose not to call me because of these rumors. And other people were very cautious when driving with me. And my dad was also getting the short end of the stick too, just because I, his son, had rumors. And he worked for me. It came so far out of left field so fast that it ended up being harder to make my payments on all of my luxury items. So unfortunately, I had to file bankruptcy. And that's because the calls were slowing down. People weren't using me as much as they used to. I was scrambling around looking for ways to survive and get afloat after the bankruptcy. Because of that whole thing, it put me in a deep pit of depression because I lost everything. I lost my empire faster than I could even imagine. I got completely sidelined. For once in my life, having all these things, all these materialistic things, I felt like a somebody. My girlfriend at the time was ready to settle down, and on multiple occasions she hinted that maybe we should get married. But honestly, I wanted nothing to do with that. I didn't want to marry this woman, especially watching my mom with countless, endless amount of guys, even married men, and watching my ex-Amish girl cheat on me multiple times. My biggest fear, especially having all this money, all of these items, my biggest fear was to get married and something were to happen where the female did not want to work it out and take 50% of everything I've ever worked hard for. I was too scared. So I chose to never get married. I chose to have her as a friendship companion. Well, she left me because I didn't have any more money or anything to give or provide.
So this is where I kind of come into the picture a little bit. I was at a very bad point in my life too, right at the same time. And he was a taxi driver in the community that I grew up in. So sometimes he drove me places and my friends and family. I knew that there was rumors about him, but he honestly happened to be my favorite driver because he was the safest driver and he paid the most attention to what's going on around out of all the drivers that I've driven with. And there was many drivers I have driven with that I didn't really care about simply because I didn't feel safe with them. But my life at home was very exhausting to me. There was things going on. My parents were trying to get me to settle down in the Amish and get baptized, but I had so many questions and I was still in my Rumspringa, so I started partying more. I started drinking more. And it was only because that's what all the Amish do in the party groups around in my area. And the reason why I did that every weekend is because I didn't want to be at home. I just wanted to be away from my parents and have something to do. But most of my friends were getting married and were dating, so I was kind of like the oldest person in the group. I was like 20 years old. Sometimes when Tyler took me places, we started talking more, and it continued on into a friendship. Nothing more than that. Like, he was the person that I could talk to about anything. I wouldn't have to hide some things just because the people were Amish, because he didn't judge me at all. And he actually opened up a little bit to me as well. Not a lot, but a little bit. It took quite a bit of time, but we developed a friendship. But I was still in a very low point where the drinking every weekend. I finally decided that I am going to move out of my parents' house as soon as I can. And I called our English friends. They lived like 2 miles from my parents' house, and they had an empty house. I asked them if I could rent from them. And a week later, I talked to them again, and they said, yes, I could. So within like the end of that month, I moved out of my parents' house because I just couldn't take it anymore. I needed some space. I was always more introverted, more independent, and I just felt so pressured at home. Moving was actually kind of hard. My family did not help me at all. They didn't tell me I can't because I was 20 years old. But that's very uncommon in the Amish, is for a woman to move out. Growing up in the Amish, I just had so many questions that I needed to get answers before I got baptized. So after I moved out, I started searching the Bible more, and this is where I really started to get confused. But living alone, I had a lot more freedom to search more for my answers. And with developing a friendship with him at the same time, I became a little more open-minded. In a good way, because the Amish teach that you can't question things, the religion and the way of life. You just have to do what you're told. At that point, Tyler and I were like texting all the time, and sometimes we actually just went out driving on the roads just talking.
Yeah, and that was actually the highlight of my life too, because I didn't have anybody. I didn't have any friends that were true friends. I didn't have anyone I could talk to about how I was feeling or anything. So just to capture that moment with an Amish person that I called my friend was amazing. Like, yes, like she said, we can go on these back roads, spend hours just driving and talking and chatting and laughing and all that. And the reason why we had to drive was because she was Amish, I was English. I couldn't just go to her house, and she couldn't just go to my house, because there was repercussions if someone found out.
Yeah, and in the Amish, that would have really been looked down upon because I wasn't married yet and I was just driving with a person who's not Amish. The friendship we had actually became really special to me, and not in a romantic way at all. It was simply kind of like what he said. I needed someone to understand me and not to judge me, because in the Amish, I was always the weird one. I didn't actually let myself believe how special this friendship was to me, because I knew that probably in a year from now, I'm never gonna see him again, because I'm not allowed to ever date him. I'm not allowed to spend more time with him, because if people would find out, they would put an end to it. Then shortly after, I kind of figured it out myself that Tyler is showing signs of interest in me in a more romantic way. Like, he wants a relationship with me, but he never said that, and he was always super respectful. And that really scared me a lot, because I couldn't bear the thought of losing our friendship. He was the only person I had, because like I said, all my friends and even my cousins my age were now getting married and dating, and they didn't really hang out with me anymore. So he was kind of the only person I had, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. But also, I couldn't imagine not being Amish. After I moved, I confronted Tyler and asked him if he was interested in me, because I just wanted to make sure that he realized that this is not going to go anywhere. Like, I have to be Amish. I can't date him or be with him. And he was completely honest with me, and he said that yes, he does like me. And that was a very hard time for both of us, because we thought our friendship had to end. We both couldn't stand the thought of losing our friendship with each other. But I refused to let myself be interested in a relationship with him, because I was taught that is completely wrong. It's a sin. So 3 months later, something strange happened to both of us. For me, I was in my bedroom in my home and I prayed. Now, I didn't really have a good relationship with God, but I still prayed, and that night it was different. God literally, I heard his voice, and it was so strange, because it was like, talk to him about having a relationship with each other this weekend. And I was like, where did that even come from? Like, I quit praying and I was so confused. But then I was like, what was this? I know I heard something. I know it was something. Then I started praying again. I was like, God, if that was really you, this, and this has to happen, or I am not going to talk to him about it, because I'm not interested in him. Like, why would you want me to talk to him about having a relationship? You know, this is not, I'm not allowed to do this. After praying, I was not confused. It was just the weirdest feeling. It was like, I know this happened, and now if those 3 things happens that I asked of God, then I have to talk to him. I just knew that I had to. It was weird, because I didn't even have a relationship with Jesus yet, so I didn't know what was going on.
And around the same day that happened to my wife, I coincidentally was lying in bed and I prayed for the first time with meaning behind it. I really couldn't stand the thought of losing my forever friend just because she's Amish and I was English. Feels like the world offered more than just that. So I prayed to God for the first time with meaning, and I asked him, I was like, if she had any bit of feelings for me, I asked God to please let her know that leaving the Amish wasn't wrong or against his will. I let him know to make sure it was a strong enough message that she got it clear as day. And that's back when I first started a relationship with God. But now I know I don't have to reassure him to do something, because whatever he does is good enough and it's going to work. But back then I was really desperate, and I really put my heart and soul into this. And right before I went to sleep, I do remember the walls closing in and the ceiling closing in. I felt like I could just reach up and touch the ceiling. I was just in this weird claustrophobic box, like the room closed in, and I stayed like that, and I closed my eyes and I felt comforted. It was a weird but good feeling at the same time. It was different, and I never experienced anything like that. At that moment, I realized that I think it's good. I think the prayer got through.
So after his prayer of desperation, and later on we found out that this happened the same week, that weekend came, and sure enough, all the things that I told God, this stuff has to happen or I'm not going to go through with it, those things happened perfectly. And it was the weirdest thing. Like, I was so taken aback. I was like, this isn't gonna happen. What it was basically is I had plans to go driving around with 2 other of my friends that weekend. And I just told God that I will not talk to him about it unless we are alone. I can't remember what else it was, but coincidentally, those 2 friends texted me that week saying that they have other plans and they have to cancel for this weekend. So I was like, okay. And it was just weird because they usually always went with us, sometimes driving around, just talking and whatever. But everything happened just so perfectly. So that weekend came and I knew what I had to do. So we went out driving again. After about maybe an hour or so after we were driving, I told him that I have something I need to talk to you about, but I'm nervous. I always felt more comfortable with him, and I felt like I could tell him anything, which was not like me at all. Like, I'm the type of person who has one good friend and lots of other friends that I'm not close to. So after we were driving for a little while, I asked him if he is still serious about having a relationship. If he is, I guess we can try it out and see what happens.
We're married. Yeah, so when she stopped me and asked me that question when we were driving, I was taken aside. I felt relieved. I couldn't believe she was actually considering this. And it took me only about 2 minutes to go back to my prayer that I remember I prayed. And I was excited that this was really happening.
Yeah, and I guess that's how our relationship started. And I was so surprised because I thought I didn't have feelings for him, but then later on I realized it was only me trying to suppress everything because I was taught it was wrong. And I was like, God, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand what's happening. But then our relationship really developed into something serious, and it happened pretty fast. And I realized that now I have to figure out what I'm going to do next. I was still completely planning on being Amish, and he even told me at the start that he would be willing to become Amish for me. So that was the plan for a little while, but then that is when I was searching the Bible, and I started realizing that they actually don't teach what the Bible teaches, and it's not the truth. And then some of the questions I had from growing up Amish finally got answered from me studying the Bible and things. And I realized that I don't want to be Amish. I can't do this. We kept our relationship a secret for a whole year because we knew that if the Amish would find out, they would do everything in their power to break us apart. And so after a year, I wrote my parents and a couple other people in my family a letter saying that this is what happened and kind of spilling my heart. And I never did that. But I explained that I am dating him. That was when all of my family started turning against me and trying everything they can to break us apart and to get me back completely into the Amish, because I was still going to the Amish church for quite a while after that before I quit. Later on, we started going to a Christian church in our community, so it was a very slow transition for me.
But the best part was I knew the preacher and his wife and his children from my upbringing. They used to be our neighbors for a couple years, so I actually knew who they were, which made it a little bit more easier for both of us for this new environment. I've never really went to church all my life, and she'd never been to an English church, but she was welcomed with one ex-Amish person that was there, and the other people were nice as well. But when it came to getting baptized, for once, she was able to understand why we baptized.
And yes, we both got baptized in that church then, just a little bit over a year ago. And we both gave our life to Jesus, and our life has completely changed now.
Yeah, but things were happening. The Amish were constricting me more and more like a rope around my neck. They were making it nearly impossible for me to make any type of livable wage. Everyone would do whatever it took not to drive with me at all. If I was the last resort, sometimes they wouldn't even use that last resort.
And they treated him pretty bad. He had some conversations in his own vehicle of them speaking Amish, and those people didn't realize that he can understand some Amish language. So that's how he found out about a lot of the rumors that were still going on. But then also everyone else who knew that he was with me, they didn't want to drive with him. So it was a hard patch, but we made it through.
But it was because of that, I decided, hey, I want to pack up everything we have and move away to a new location where no one knows us, no one can judge us, no one knows our past, and we can live in freedom in the world and in Christ.
Yeah, and I wasn't completely on board with moving away and everything. We both knew that we want to get married. But I was still allowed to visit my family as long as I was dressed Amish and everything, and they really didn't know much of what was going on in my life because I lived alone. And so it wasn't until this year in May when we got married, and in April I told my parents that we're going to get married, and they told me that I am completely shunned. I cannot see them at all anymore. And so that's when I told him I can't live so close to my family and not be able to see them ever. Plus, every single time I'm out in public, I feel so judged, and I feel like I can't even go in public. And at that time, I was completely dressing in modern clothes, and that's just so much more judgment. So I was completely on board with moving away. And so this year in May, we got married. Our life is just completely turned around. We moved a little bit over an hour away from the community. We love our life together.
Absolutely.
Like, I really miss my family, and we wish that they would allow us to visit, but maybe someday.
So we really do hope that our family does come around, and honestly, if you guys don't mind, if you guys can send like prayers in the comments, we would really appreciate that, because it is a very difficult time, not just for her, not just for me, not just for us, but for them as well, because they can't find closure in their hearts to accept her with her new way of life.
And also pray for his family, because the first part of these series were more about his family. So there's just tons of prayers to be said for them as well. And the only thing that got us through what we went through later on in life was Jesus. He brought us out of all of that. And now we are at peace with our life, and it's just so amazing. So even though there's a lot of things and people that are not in our life anymore, yes, it's not easy, but Jesus makes everything so much better, and we don't have to live in fear and be robbed of our joy just because of decisions that others make that we can't change anyways. So yes, thank you so much for all of you who have watched this series and gone with us, supported us on this journey. We thank you all for your support, and yes, our story does have a happy ending.